This is a Clouds weather alert.
Good late Thursday, early Friday. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, coming to you pretty late again with our update as we're tracking things, as we got that latest Storm Prediction Center convective outlook in here in just the last little bit, and another very significant risk for tornadoes on that Friday nationally. I know on Thursday we had a little bit lower risk, and it wasn't too big of a deal, but going to become a big deal again. It looks like on that Friday after what we had on Wednesday, which was just just so many warnings, so many tornadoes, a historic event in of itself. And now on Friday, it's going to be a big deal again. And then you see all the green boxes, flash flood warnings. Now we have base flash flood warnings, considerable threat flash flood warnings. I'm expecting to start seeing flash flood emergencies pop up as we get more and more rain. Some areas could see another half foot of rain or more even as we look ahead into toward the timeline there toward like that Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, Illinois, Arkansas region. So very significant, very substantial danger here as we're looking at things here in toward the timeline. So let me go ahead and we'll first zoom into some of these flash flood warnings here in toward parts of Kentucky. You can see areas like from around Louisville there down to the south. All these green boxes. There's so much rainfall already occurring in these areas. I mean, in the last 12 hours, 4 inches. Some of these spots, but going to get a lot more in south or western parts of Kentucky around Mayfield. Some areas getting a half foot of rain here in the last 12 hours. A lot more is expected, unfortunately, here as we look in toward the timeline. And this red area indicates a risk for strong to maybe even an isolated violent tornado or two as we look ahead later in toward that Friday. That goes all the way from northeast Texas there. So from around like Longview and Tyler. Granted, I mean, that area, Texarkana, you got to be paying attention. I mean, that Tyler area is under the 10% technically, but you still got to be paying attention. Could have some strong tornadoes down there, even in that gold area. So I'll be watching that too, and even the yellow, but the red is where the biggest danger is. So like from Longview up through about Mount Pleasant, Texarkana, Hope, Arkansas, Hot Springs there, Little Rock and the metro over to Cabot, up to Russellville, up to Batesville. You see Mountain Home in here too. Areas from around Fort Smith will need to be watching as well here. And this goes even into Poplar Bluff, yet again in southeastern Missouri. And I mean, it's slightly lower, but still a strong tornado can't be ruled out around areas from Paducah back off to the north and west, including Cape Girardeau. Paducah and Cape Girardeau both got hit by tornadoes right there in toward town. From what I saw, the ratings so far, you have 2 for Paducah, you have 1 for Cape Girardeau. You can see here, though, getting into toward parts of southern Illinois. I mean, even into toward like Perryville, Missouri. There's a risk for a strong tornado there. A little bit lower threat north and west. I mean, you see Potosi north and west of there, then you have 3 tornadoes on Wednesday. Very significant, a very dangerous situation. I'll go ahead and throw up the EF scale here. And severe damage, almost an EF4. And, what a big deal nationally this is. And we had tornadoes at least EF3 damage toward like Lake City, Arkansas, and Selmer, Tennessee. May have been worse, but at least EF3 damage noted in and toward those areas. So, just awful there. Lake City, Arkansas, Selmer, Tennessee. As we're looking at the overall scenario, I know it's been busy for me here in the Weather Center long hours, and they're going to continue here. I mean, that's the risk for your Friday with the tornadoes. I mean, there's going to be a risk further back for some severe weather. I know folks may be headed out to the Final Four. There's going to be a risk for some hail, and some of that hail could be rather large, especially off toward the north and west of there. And then the wind risk a little lower, but the hail risk is a bigger deal versus the tornado threat. So you have to pay attention now that we already see warnings now toward the north and west and toward some of those zones. This risk isn't going to quit. This is Friday. Now, Saturday, the risk will be in the Arkland mist there, where it's going to focus, broadly, just kind of describing it. Then on Sunday, starting to get closer to us, and then toward Mondays when we're going to see things pick going up even a little bit more so here locally. It would currently appear, but stay tuned for the latest updates. We'll be on as is necessary for the national and the local concerns here, and we'll just play it by ear for our updates next week. Our schedule late Tuesday, late Thursday. We'll do at least one of those, but we may take one of those days off depending on how things go in the days to come because we've had such long hours. But we'll be, looking at things, assessing things. Not a guarantee I'll do it like that. Take one of them off, but we'll be on it quite a bit before then. So just stay tuned on all the different platforms: Facebook, Casey Celebrity X, Cloud Weather on Facebook as well. Twitter /X at Cloud Casey, YouTube at Cloud Weather, and Twitch Cloud Weather. So again, watching things carefully. Like quarter-size hail right now in Monroe County, Arkansas, even at this late hour, about 1:30 a.m. Central Time. As we go ahead and kind of look at things here, let me just put up the model run here for around the lunch hour. You see some of these storms around. I mean, the threat will be getting worse here as we look ahead. Later on, though, potentially there, as the conditions try to destabilize here in this 4th of April 2025. You see these storms all discrete in nature from early afternoon all the way into the evening. You see all those storms around, and those could be tornadic. In here around Little Rock up toward the Boot Hill, Missouri. We sure hope the risk isn't verifying as much as it did from Wednesday, but it very well could. Just a crazy set of circumstances here, and you see, as we get into toward that Saturday, we're continuing to track things here in southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, parts of Mississippi. Tornadoes again are a risk. I know that's not the risk area for Saturday up there, but it's going to be off to the south and east a little. I'll take the SPC off, but let me go ahead and put on something else for everybody here. This is going to progress things out to like Sunday, that longer range model, and you see some storms around like Alabama and Georgia, and then eventually we'll start to see as we get into toward the early hours of Monday, storms coming in toward our area. As you see, this is around 2 o'clock Eastern on that Monday, 5 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock there. So at 11 o'clock, we hope these will start to weaken on out here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the timeline. I know I'm a Seminole fan, but I know those Gator fans will be hoping they're in the national title game there in college basketball Monday night, and they don't want to have to deal with any tornado warnings. That could be, an issue. During that point, I think the threat will hopefully be winding down by the evening, but it's a little too early to know for sure. As we're tracking things there on that Monday locally, and then also just notice the FSU spring weekend there in Tallahassee, and most of that looks pretty good. I'll kind of back this on up a little bit here for everybody at home. Bear with me here. And we'll put 2 o'clock on Sunday. So maybe stuff trying to come in later on Sunday toward Tallahassee. But hopefully most of that, if not all of that, is what we want, to happen, all of it to hold off there for all those folks coming to town at FSU baseball series against Wake Forest. And such a great team there. One of the top baseball teams in the entire country. I know, congratulations. We didn't have time on our severe coverage because things were too, rapidly evolving there Wednesday night. But what a great win there by the FSU softball team there against the Gators. The coach there for FSU in softball, Lonnie Alameda, wishing her well here, and as she's dealing with a battle with cancer right now. So, really hoping that she recovers there and, and that goes away for her. So as we go ahead and continue to watch things here, you see all these storms out toward Texas. If it's thunderstorm warnings and play out there. As we're looking, I'm going to sample some of these on my end here. $50 says hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds, something along those lines in some of the different communities. As we're tracking things, give or take with those warnings, some of the east of Odessa, Texas, one there north of Abilene. So, again, just what a big deal this outbreak has been. The setup has been so busy here in the Weather Center. Maybe we're telling my voice, and we got more days ahead of this as well here. And toward the timeline, eventually we'll start to see things improve as we get past Monday nationally. That'll be good news, obviously, but gotta get through the next few days first. That's 4 more days and me having to really be on top of things, whether it's local later on, and toward the picture, or national earlier on. So the threat continues. Tornado watch, that means conditions favorable for tornadic activity. You want to stay tuned for the latest. Entire devices have multiple ways to receive alerts. A tornado warning means a tornado has been detected using radar or spotted. You want to try to avoid taking shelter in a mobile home. You want to get inside a sturdy building. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. And you want to protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet, football helmet, or baseball helmet. And, shoes, are something you want to have on too, because if there's a tornado and you have a lot of damage, the glass that's around could cut your feet up. So as we look here, next 7 days rainfall, a lot of this much earlier on than that. Gonna just have so much rain pile into Arkansas. Gonna have probably swiftwater rescues all over the place, sadly. So that's why we need folks to turn around, don't drown. We want to mitigate the danger to folks as much as possible by folks not getting out in the, and you guys not getting out into those areas where the water is rising, where you can't see how deep it is. It's so dangerous. But we're probably going to start seeing flash flood emergencies get issued here for catastrophic flooding. And you got to watch out for a tornado threat at the same time. And with some of these basements flooded, that could start to become an issue. But the basement is the best place to go here. You want to try to get underground if you can from a tornado. But if it's flooded out, then you have to try to seek alternate arrangements, an interior room away from windows, or maybe some type of other storm shelter you have. That'd be, even better if it's not flooded out. Or you could, go to some type of public shelter, depending on, just the overall scenario there. So, cloudweather.com/radar gives you an interactive look at things, whether on the air or not here. We're trying to give you guys the very latest there on everything. Look at all that rain, though. I mean, we're talking about half a foot of rain toward like Arkansas, Missouri, parts of those states. I mean, especially Arkansas, but southern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, western central Kentucky, western Tennessee, northern Mississippi. An ominous situation that's been described by some of the Weather Service offices there as such a dangerous scenario, and this could end up being a generational flash flooding event. Something that is talked about forever as how bad it's going to end up getting here. I mean, there were already pretty bad reports of flooding on that Thursday in Memphis, and the water could be, feet deep here in some communities, even more so as we look ahead in the timeline. I was seeing a report, water multiple feet deep in parts of Memphis already, and, maybe it's those areas here that have the potential that have all that concrete to flood a little easier, but eventually it could be areas that don't flood hardly ever that have big flooding problems here as we look ahead in the timeline. A really big deal. I know toward Tallahassee, looking like about 1.5 inches of rain, most of that around that Sunday late time there into Monday. Monday's not looking fun here for our area. We have the logo red for national, but we'll be keeping on top of it as the system swings in locally. Won't maybe quite pack quite the punch as it did further to the northwest, but still got to be watched. And we'll be here for you to guide you through the situation. I know we'll be on for any tornado warning storms within anywhere in our 62 counties. And then fog safety tips here. Make sure you slow down and give yourself extra time to reach your destination. This pattern is favorable for that. It's very, very warm, unseasonably warm. I mean, we're at 70 degrees right now here east of Stark in the middle of the night. Sun was down earlier and we were still at like 78. Just so toasty here. All that humidity here in play and these unseasonably warm temperatures, and then you have that fog threat in play. So you just got to make sure your vehicle is as visible as possible to the vehicles with using low beam headlights. Leave plenty of room between you and the vehicle in front of you. And now since we're in that tornado outbreak mode, I didn't want to really get into too much in updating our forecast, but the general information, stays storyline coming into next week. So I didn't update it here. We're still what we're looking at late Tuesday, Wednesday, but you see it's just going to be warm, and then it's going to start getting wetter here, and then we'll have a cool down and maybe even some 40s as we get later on next week. So that's kind of the idea with that as we go ahead and see here as we look at the situation. You can see we have a major tornado risk here, northeast Texas, so a little bit further south of some of this, but you see Longview and Sulphur Springs and Texarkana and Hope and Hot Springs and Little Rock and Russellville and Cabot. You have areas there like Batesville and Mountain Home and Jonesboro again, that area. Lake City, Arkansas, I'm sure they'd be in this here again. As we look ahead into toward the timeline, well, actually they're right on the edge of the 15, maybe just into the 10 a little bit. Still a risk for strong tornadoes again there. You see Poplar Bluff, Doniphan, Malden and Dexter there, or Malden, I guess it's Malden there in the heartland. But again, just continuing to watch this here. You see all these flash flood warnings, and we still got, a couple more days of problems to go as we look toward these different areas in the country. Again, let me go ahead and just remind you guys here the outlooks with the rainfall and the models. And it's not a pretty picture. I mean, this is later Friday, and then you see all that stuff in southeast Missouri, and maybe a intensifying squall. I'm going into Paducah there late tomorrow night around 10 o'clock Central Time, give or take. But you got to be weather aware. Here next few days, just have multiple ways to get alerts, even in the overnight, to be safe. As we're looking here, and you see this is getting in towards Saturday. You see here more moisture coming in. And Memphis, this is Memphis Saturday afternoon flooding is probably just going to keep rising and rising. Really wouldn't want to have events going on in that area there towards Shelby County, Tennessee, and surrounding areas because, all that moisture piling up on every thing here after it's already had so much rain. I mean, this is, totals here are 3 more inches in just, a handful of hours, give or take, as I'm looking at the situation. It's just not a good one in toward that region there. Not a good scenario. I mean, so much rain already, and some areas could get 5 inches of rain in 6 hours. There on top of already, a half foot, give or take, depending on where you are in the region. And it could even be worse than that in some isolated areas. We could get over a foot for sure in some of these isolated areas here as we're looking at the current data again from around 1:30 Central Time in the morning, 2:30 Eastern. I know those rivers, those are going to have flooding problems. It's got to be really, really careful. A nasty situation here for sure. Looking at the current temperatures late at night, I mean, you see it's a lot cooler further back northwest, like in Enid, Oklahoma there, 48 degrees. Farmington, Missouri, 48 degrees, but a lot warmer on the other side of things. And we've had all that heat, it was last night really getting those storms as they were rotating, and they just had so much potential. We were on in the middle of the night, with the coverage of like Selmer, Tennessee, and that tornado that was so destructive for those poor folks up there. Just an awful, awful situation. Back here, as it's warranted, it's going to be at point over the next few days. We got, still quite a few days ahead of us here in the Weather Center to get through all this with this tornado outbreak. This historic scenario. There was the most warnings there issued in the country in a 24-hour period since, I believe, the April 2011 outbreak there that hit the Tuscaloosa area and areas of Alabama, Mississippi so hard. And most severe thunderstorm tornado warnings combined in a 24-hour period. Since that horrible, horrible event there in 2011, I believe only 2 other events since that's been tracked, have been higher. That one and then one in 2004 maybe. From what I saw there, the Iowa Environmental Mesonet keeps tabs on all that. So I know worst, in terms of the number of warnings, severe thunderstorm and tornado within a 24-hour period, a worst period for that in over a decade, almost 15 years now. It's not that far off, next year it'll be 15 years, believe it or not, since that super outbreak. This wasn't maybe a super outbreak. We've seen some fatalities, though, not near to that level back then, but so I wouldn't call it a super outbreak yet. We'll see what happens next few days, but still very, very bad. And folks in that red and that gold, this could be a very bad day for you. But we've talked about it before. Most folks, are not going to get hit by a tornado despite all the threat. You see, like Paducah and Cape Girardeau, they get hit by a tornado, but parts of town don't get the tornado. They get other aspects of the severe weather instead. So even if it's like 1% they get a tornado, that 1% has to be really, really aware because this could be a deadly situation here. These are capable of producing deadly weather, this outbreak here, and this threat continuing. So we're going to get through it here, folks. Just stay tuned and stay safe. I know. Thanks, everybody, for watching on all the different platforms. I know, seeing some questions here about on YouTube. I appreciate Mike for watching, and then a question here from another viewer about dew points, and I mean, the dew points are up, and that's a big factor in severe weather concern as those, conditions become in that red zone. Those dew points will go up, those temperatures are going to go up, and we're going to have problems. If for some reason they didn't go up as much, maybe that would mitigate the rest some. But we have all the parameters of shear, the energy all coming into play for another disastrous day toward areas like in Arkansas, and this time maybe a little in Texas, a little bit of Oklahoma. You see southeast Oklahoma in there around areas there. I mean, Idabel, give or take, and we have southeast areas of Missouri around Poplar Bluff. Not a good situation here. Another day of danger ahead. Just please try to stay informed for the latest updates. Not good stuff here meteorologically. So again, we're just going to be paying attention, but a lot of folks still, just because of how tornadoes work, won't get hit by a tornado. More will have flooding. More will have some hail that could be very large at points. So keep that in mind. Large hail is possible. That could be, really damaging in those green zones. The wind risk a little bit lower, quite honestly, but it's still worth noting. But this tornado risk is what is the gravest danger. Very serious stuff. So stay tuned, stay safe. That'll do it for now. Have a great night. I'll be back here in the days to come with many more updates as they are warranted. That'll do it for now.